Welcome to our first podcast, our first show that we are doing together, the three of us. And can I introduce Carrie Irwin to you, who I've worked with for many years, and Leslie Mitchell, and myself, Matthew Byrne. And we're here today to talk a little bit about leadership facilitation. We're coming to you from Piermont in rainy Sydney today, and it's and we're meeting on Pirama land. And the Pirama people are most famous for Bennelong Point and the first commercial sale of property that ever was done between Aboriginal and white settlers. So I want to pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. And we're going to spend the next couple of minutes talking a little bit about some important topics or some observations we've been making. And I think one of the things that we've been talking about quite a bit has been leadership is not rocket science. It's actually a little bit easier. Carrie, what do you that was one of your statements.
It's one of my pet statements about leadership being not rocket science. And why do leaders get it so wrong? This is the challenge that we see daily in our work. And I work with CEOs who don't understand that their IQ is important, but EQ, emotional intelligence, is much more important than that. So how they operate and deal with people on a day-to-day basis, and their importance in regards to how they view their staff and how they deal with their staff is the way that they can get those people's hearts as well as their minds. And it becomes frustrating because we work very hard to help and develop leaders within organisations, and we see it from every level. And it's for us when you see a CEO say to me, "Oh, I don't do performance conversations. I just have a coffee with my team." That's all they need. That's all they need to do. But I say to them, "But that's not what your people need. They want more time with you." And I don't have a lot of time. I don't have, I'm too busy. And and the thing is that understanding the importance of working with your people and letting them know what good looks like for them to be able to work towards that's important, and giving them feedback. That's really important.
It's a really interesting thing. So do they not understand what their people are wanting at all? Are they not taking that into consideration, or are they being what do you think's going on?
I think it's a combination of things. I think the pressure on them as CEOs to deliver to the bottom line. They've got boards to accommodate, and they've got shareholders, etc. And they see that as their priority without understanding to get there. The vehicle to get there is actually through the people.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the main issues for them. And I understand the pressure they're under, but you just want them to stop and hesitate and pause and think about what would work better.
I think someone else is saying that
yes,
as well.
Somebody agrees with me.
Someone agrees very significantly is agreeing with Carrie at the moment. We're in the middle of a thunderstorm, which of course when you should never record a podcast, but here we are anyway. So a quick one. You talk about the pressure being so high. Is it? But do you think there is a capability set missing around that, being able to look at the world from their people's point of view, or to understand, to walk a mile in somebody else's shoes, to get an idea about what that could look like and how that could help them to see the perspective of others more?
I think partly to do with the fact that they have come through a stream within the business. So they may not have that capability. And they're not going to tell anybody they don't have that capability.
Oh, so they want to be vulnerable in that space. So they know all, be all, am all.
Yes. Well, it's the role models that have come before them as CEOs or senior leaders. We're not only talking senior executives and CEOs, we're talking all levels. But they believe they're being, appointed or anointed as a leader or a manager. They should know all the answers. They will be found wanting if they ask a question or ask help or ask for advice.
So you in your career, you've spoken to an awful lot of CEOs. You've coached, mentored CEOs. You've put them through development programs. You've worked with a lot of diverse, different industries. Tell me, are all CEOs the same, or are there actually some CEOs who get it?
There are some CEOs that get it. There I would probably have sat on boards with at least 10 or 12 CEOs that I've actually worked with very closely in the organisation, not as their HR person. And there's a couple of CEOs that are standouts for me. And neither of them, it came naturally. Neither of them did. They worked on it.
So what do you think that working on it was? Was that what sort of practice did they put into place to improve themselves? What were they doing?
They listened more. They asked open questions. They didn't rush to answer in board meetings. They listened to their team. One particular CEO who I was an absolute standout for me. He was a very strong individual. Came from France, and he was. I saw him in meetings where he would sit on his hands. He would literally. I knew he knew the answer, but he wouldn't give them the answer. He would wait till his team came up with it.
It's that piece around empowering others by them coming up with the idea, so they actually believe it and do it in that process. And so instead of me leading from the front, it's actually them actually coming up with it and thinking about it, so they own it in that sense of doing it. It's good.
It was good.
Yeah.
And he said he did. I said to him, how did you... I can see you know the answer. And he said, Kerry, it's learnt. I've had to sit in the space and know if they come up with the answer or solution, they own it.
Yeah.
It's not me telling them this is how it should be.
Yeah, it's much better, more engagement in that process. The other thing I think that's really important with him is he's reflecting on his practice, on his leadership practice. So it's that's where I find people at that level or any level in that fact of is where they do that reflective practice. They grow so much quicker in that process. Isn't it amazing that, in terms of those programs that we run or those things that we do, is it's over length of time, so they actually do some reflective practice and thinking around exposure.
So you spoke about a couple of CEOs that were doing the work required in order to become an EQ based CEO, and that empowers others to get the outcomes. And it doesn't seem that hard. I mean, our topic is rocket science, right? And what I've written down here so far, it doesn't seem that hard to do it. So, and most of the CEOs come through the same way. They are not natural like that. Why are other CEOs not engaging and learning those skills?
I think they have yet to. They don't understand the value of it. I think that, as I said, role modelling before, the previous CEOs that have come before them, or I worked with one general manager in one of the organisations, and he modelled himself on how his father operated as a general manager. And then when we worked with him and stepped him through, he realised that his father's model, where he knew all the answers, his father never asked for help. He just knew all the answers, that he realised that model wasn't working for him effectively. So he changed that whole division around. It was amazing, the turnaround, when he understood that it was okay to sit at the table and say, I don't have the answer. Have we got any other solutions? Have we got suggestions?
I'm not the expert.
Oh, yeah, I'm not the expert.
I've got experts in the room that can help with that process.
It was for him, we talk about aha moments a lot. And for him, it wasn't a massive aha moment. He didn't have to be like, it wasn't natural to him to be like his dad either. He said, I don't have to be like my dad to accomplish things. So, yeah.
Excellent. Look, just summarising what we just talked about, right? I guess, maybe it is rocket science. I don't know, right? You built a great case. I think in our conversation we've talked a little bit about how simple sometimes these things are, yet how elusive it is. And when we talk about the art of listening, or the skill of listening, and what it would take for us to be more listening than we are talking, to don't rush to answers, and so that we are spending time in the discomfort with our teams, allowing them and allowing other people to come up with multiple options before we go to a solution. And I guess that needs a sense of patience. And I think you were talking about when the pressure comes from the top and it's pushing down on you, can you be that patient? And that's a skill that needs to be learned. Empowering others is a big thing, and I think and I think one of the things that that maybe in our facilitation we have to spend more time on and more work on is to really build the value proposition of working through others and what that could look like and how we can actually build that kind of level of value that people are saying, I don't do it because I like to do it, I do it because it really gets results. And I guess and I guess what is required for that is a strong leadership practice. Is something that we need in order to build that kind of that kind of constant reflection that we have. And I think in our programs, as I know from my point of view in growing up, I've only really come to reflective practices in the last 5 or 6 years. Up until then, I was really working on content. I was really working on insights. I was really working on the latest models and frameworks. And so this is something that's new to me that I'm sort of working with. But I think there's real gold there. And ultimately, in our coaching sessions, if we can identify their role models and understand that they may be working from wrong role models, that we could actually help them be able to build and construct a new role model. And I think that might be better than trying to solve the problem of the day in our coaching sessions. So I guess if that's a good enough summary for everyone who's listening to us, then we might move on to the next topic, Leslie, which is you're talking a little bit about the what you call the STP model, but I call the Leslie Magic model.
Oh, it's a bit like your coffee. It's really
Yes.
magic coffees.
Magic coffee.
It's a really interesting framework that was provided to me by a colleague down in Melbourne, and what he did was he talked about what our roles are at different positions within an organisation. So probably what the best thing to do is probably draw it for you. So can I do that, and then we'll talk it
So
through.
you have a pencil here, and I'm going to switch
Bravo.
cameras so you won't see us for a while, but we'll come back as soon as the
Diagram's
is
done.
finished.
Okay, let me just see if I can do this. So what my friend did, he said lots of people are using this profile tool or this tool and actually explaining what we do on a day-to-day basis at work. So the diagram goes, this axis here is the hierarchy within the organisation, and this axis here is the time spent, percentage of time spent in any one of these three axes.
There we go, we got rid of that.
Okay, right. The three little pods we've got here is the S is for, no, that's not working. Let me try that again.
Push that there, yeah.
Is for strategy. So we understand strategy. Strategy determines how we work in a day-to-day basis, or it's about where will this organisation be going. There's the task process, so it's what I do on a day-to-day basis, what my speciality is, and then there is people, because we work in an organisations. Unless you're one-on-one doing one person, that's it. You're always working with people, so you're learning from people, you're collaborating with people, you're working, helping, supporting people. So does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So what I wanted to do was, they say this is how it was described. So when you first come into the workforce, you become so it's a frontline worker. So let's take nursing for example. So you're a registered nurse. So what I have to do is most of my time is spent in task. So that's what I have to do. It's about patient care, and it's about changing the beds, or it's about distributing medicine, or whatever that process is. I need to understand the strategy, because that's the way I work around here. It gives me my policies, my guidelines. It gives me my, what do you call it, Matt? Your practices and principles.
Yes.
Is about how we do it. It gives me my principles in that process. And then I have to work with people. So I'm going to learn from people, grow from people in that process. Yeah? Then what happens is I get promoted. And usually in most organisations, we get promoted from within into that next level. So at this level is a nurse unit manager. So they run the ward. And if you're talking about this component, what I do is they get promoted from being a registered nurse to a nurse unit manager. And there's very little understanding of what they have to do at that point. They might have practiced it, But they sort of sit there and they go up into this new role, very excited about that process. They haven't really replaced that registered nurse to start with. So they're going up, they're one short. So what they do, and they're uncomfortable with what I have to do in strategy, so what they'll do is they'll take work from their previous role with them and fill this space up here that should be around strategy with their old role. And they'll take work up into this space here, whereas people, where they should be having performance conversations, having coaching conversations, setting guidelines, boundaries, that process, communication, networking, they've filled it up with their task. And somebody comes along and says, you need to do the rosters. You need to actually do an operational plan. You need to do the budgets. You need to do... And they suddenly work really, really long hours.
So doesn't the organisation stop that? Doesn't the organisation with the job descriptions and the way that they promote their people make sure that it doesn't happen that way?
That's a really interesting thing. Let me draw you remember the process around where we have this little learning guidelines and we talk about you have a comfort zone. These are your zones. Yeah? And then you have a learning zone. And then you have a fear zone. So I'm being told what to do in that process, but I'm really quite scared of it. I get out of the learning zone, go into the fear zone. And what people do when you hit a fear zone, you're going to go straight to a comfort, something that's familiar with you. And I call it their little blankie. So what's their blankie that's holding in this space that they're actually doing? Because that's what the problem is. So you need to, recognise it, understand it, and then start to give it back.
So what you're saying, if I interpret this correctly, is that that even though the work doesn't require them to do it, they're doing it themselves in order for them to feel that they're valuable, that they have some value in what they're doing. Yes, that's what they've always been good at. Yes,
because when you go from being a frontline worker to a nursery manager or a manager or a team leader, your whole, this is probably the biggest thing that you'll ever go through in the sense of your headspace needs to move, because you're not a contributor anymore. You're actually managing the resources that will contribute to. So you get results through others, not through your own actual work, your own effort. It's about through the effort of others. And your brain is quite hard to shift that because I feel lazy. You're doing all the work and I'm not, Matt. So how can I help you? I know how to do that, I'll do that for you. Let me do that for you. And so to try and make your life easier and I feel I'm contributing. Wow. It's a really interestingly process.
It is interesting because with the CEOs, when you think about the CEOs, they will be in task and strategy.
Yes.
And they'll ignore the people at times if it's not their comfort zone.
Yeah, it's what is in their comfort. And if you think about at a CEO level, you need to be in strategy and people, and your task that you're employed is tiny completely, but you need to be across setting the strategy. You need to be across setting the culture of the people, of the organisation. So this is how we do things around here. Anyway, but it was just a really learning. When this gentleman showed me this diagram, I went, I'd never realised it because I'd always been promoted across. So I'd never been in this situation. And every time I talk to someone about it, every time I start a coaching conversation, they go, oh my God, that's what I'm doing. How do I give it back? So we talk about techniques about how do we give it back? Because while you hold it, that work for others, you're actually disempowering your people. You're catching yourself in that role. You can't get out of that role. You can't be promoted because you're doing other people's jobs. Your boss can't delegate to you, so you're learning. You're really caught, and they're caught in a situation.
So if we get to the point where you're going up the hierarchy, and if I just put the diagram back in again.
Beautiful drawing.
Your beautiful drawing, yes. And as you see the task is going up higher and higher, the task is becoming smaller and smaller until we get to that level of where there's very little task at the CEO level. Where's the tipping point where people actually just automatically give up on that and then just accept that they're executives now?
Well, that's a really interesting question. I was doing this with this whole mud map with a person that just been promoted to a CEO role within the region. And what they went was, I drew this picture, and they went, oh my goodness, I have taken a task from down at that level, and I've taken it all the way up with me.
Wow.
Because I really like that client or that process. So they've actually they recognised it with this conversation and went, okay, I need to give it back. But now that client that she's taken with her is used to dealing with the CEO or the 2IC. So they're not going to be wanting to come back to that process. It's a real issue that they have. But so, Matthew, in answer to your question, some people realise it, some people don't.
Wow.
It's a fascinating world in which they live, because it's their comfort. So what they're doing is they're taking their blankie or something that's making them feel comfortable with what they're doing, which is when we were talking about your CEOs before.
Yes.
So this is how we become bad managers and incompetent leaders.
Well, it's how we don't empower our people. So if I think about what a role of a leader and a manager is, it's about empowering your people to be the best that they can be. And to do that, you need to let them do their job as opposed to doing it for them.
And they may not necessarily be bad managers in that, as Leslie talks about, from the point of view of that, the love handles, as we call them, from the point of view of they expand. They're not going to survive because they're expanding their, the amount of hours there are to do everything that they feel they need to do. I had a CEO actually that was talking about taking tasks forward. He was really struggling, and I was working with him, and he actually started to organise the Christmas party for the staff because he just was floundering. So he thought he loved doing that stuff.
Because it was in his comfort zone.
Yeah, so he went back to his blankie was the Christmas party.
And did you go, I found your blankie?
I said, I really think that's the best use of your time. Yeah, that was really important for morale. I'm like, okay.
It's a very interesting. It's also trust in that process about.
Yes.
Do I trust other people to do the job? If some people go, I'm the only one that knows how to do this well, and if I teach you how to do it, you're going to do it differently. You're not going to do it the same process. My little C's are going to my conscientiousness people are going to come through big time because I won't trust you because you won't do it the same way as I do it, and I can do it quicker. So why it takes me too long to teach you.
Yes,
so
and you see that a lot, don't you, in organisations where people go, I can't hand this over to someone, they're not going to do it as well, I can do it better.
Yeah.
I remember you telling me this years ago, right? Maybe before COVID, right? You told
back in
me
the dark ages.
Back in the dark ages, right? And I'd forgotten about it. I didn't pay much attention to it, right? I believe it was when we were up in doing a retreat workshop up in the Blue Mountains, and we were working up there, and then you explained it to me again, and you taught it to me again, and I've been using it in my workshops ever since then, with an incredible success. It has absolutely. You see everybody looking at me putting diagram up and said, that's me, that's who I am, that's where I'm stuck, and that's what's killing me at the moment. And I think this is the most real way to make it personal about them, not about the organization, and not about some sort of case study of Kodak or Fuji or anything else like that. It's about their lived experience, and if we can bring that into the room and we can actually get them to work on it, I found that I've gotten people's interest engagement when that happened.
Yeah, they can, and they work out what to do. They sort of, how do I get out of it? And we work that process through around it.
Yeah.
I always say when you're going to change behaviours or give something back, is you always let them know that I've been doing you a disservice, or I haven't been the best manager and leader for you at this point in time because I've been doing your job for you or whatever, and I haven't enabled you. So I'm going to have to change in that process. But it's becoming, people don't like the word vulnerable. Well, I think the vulnerable is there because it's actually saying I'm not looking after you as a leader and manager should. I've got to come back and set this is the expectations. this is what good, which is what you said before. This is what good looks like. This is what I'm wanting from you.
And I think that's a good coaching technique, because if they just go back and start to change, then
confuses everybody.
Everybody's like, what happened? What happened to Jenny? She went to a course and she's come home and it's very different. So I think setting the scene is really important from that perspective.
All of those things, and that reflective practice of
Yes.
that process. It's really I think it's really, really important. When I've drawn these pictures and they come back the next time I see them after either one-on-one coaching, or they come back to another face-to-face or a virtual session, and we debrief what have they been doing in the previous week, month, whatever. And a lot of it's around that STP. Must be a better framework or name of it, but someone can tell me what I should call it.
Yeah.
Because it's actually saying I've actually been giving back the roles to the right people.
Can I ask a question of both of you? So from this perspective, using this model, and I've used this model as well, but using this model with the organisations, the various organisations you work with, have you seen it in the most of the organisations you've worked with, or was there some that you felt was struggling more than others from an industry perspective?
Do you mean that everybody does it?
Everybody does.
Does it.
I haven't found an industry where that doesn't happen. The only no, I was thinking maybe arts, right? But I guess if you're an actor, you're in that what I call frontline worker aspect. And if you didn't, even as an actor in a stage show, become the producer, director, something like that, I've seen so many of them wanting to act for the actors they employ.
Yes. Let me tell you how to do that.
Yes. You see, yes. What's going through my mind, right? Yes. And we don't want you to do your own interpretation.
No,
of
it's
this,
my
right?
interpretation, because I'm writing them.
Yes.
I can do it better
than you can.
Yeah.
So I think it's pretty universal in where I've seen it.
Yeah. I think the only way you're ever going to not face it, not have it, is have a pre-process around promoting people, but also do the check coming back. So it's their manager, it's their line manager coming and saying, tell me what you're doing that's your role versus your old role.
Yes.
Tell me where you're comfortable and where you're actually learning. So it is about that next line manager actually coaching, supporting their new staff member, because we think they know. And
we
they
assume
don't.
a lot.
We
assume a lot. It's that just-in-time training, isn't it? Just-in-time in regards to induction, and don't let us get started on that in this session. But induction for people in organisations.
And into new roles within that organisation. What's that next piece? And that's what we don't do very well. I think that's why I talk to people about saying, why are you coming to this course? And some will say, because I volunteered, and some will say, because I got told to. And a lot of I got told to is because they're doing that. They're doing their old task as well as their new. It's just, but life's been when they've seen it and done something about it, then it's a fascinating, the freeness and the time, they're actually spending the time in the right space. And so the team actually is far more engaged and thriving, as opposed to being in the grind of it.
It's interesting you say that, because I used to talk about if you do a 5-day program with me, I'll give you back a day, right, in your life, right, and the question is, what are you going to do with that day, right? What are you going to do with that day? And most people have filled it up with tasks again. They haven't filled it up with strategy and with people. And thinking and taking time out. They haven't even used it for work-life balance, or to say, I'm actually going to go home and spend time with my kids.
Yeah.
I constantly ask the question and says, how many hours a week? Do you work 35 hours a week? And nobody puts their hand up. And it says, do you work less than 35 hours a week? Right? Nobody puts their hand up. Do you work more than 35 hours? Everybody puts their hand up. 40 hours, everybody puts their hand up. At 50 hours, some are down, but they're all working extra hours. And so we're all working too hard. And these bulges here that we're seeing here. Oops, I'll turn the thing on again. These bulges we see around here, and over there.
What I like to call love handles.
Yes.
Was given a name given to me by somebody I was showing, one of the frontline workers I was showing, just become a manager, and he said, they look like love handles. Yeah. So
these love handles, right? They are I've always seen that we take them away, we help them get rid of them, and then they just come back again over time. That's because they haven't done the work, and they're not prepared to do the work.
Yeah.
In order to really get outside of the comfort zone and build that expanded comfort zone.
But getting into that learning zone,
Yeah.
and they go into a process of they go, oh my gosh, no, I've got to go back. I've got to go back into that process. So no, this is my, and it's blankies.
Yeah.
It's a really, because you'll find it's what Kerry found. It's the Christmas party, organising the Christmas party. It's one thing that they feel comfortable with, that they go back and do. But I am comfortable, but I'm successful in this. It gives them, because if you're in that next roll up, what you're doing is you'll be challenged all the time in that process. So this one gives me a tick. I've done this, I've tasked, I'm doing really well. It's interesting.
So, we'll go to the next topic.
Do you want to get rid of the...
Yes. I thought that diagram was much better looking than we were, right? But if you insist, we'll go back to that. I guess one of the things that have come out of this for me, right, is this concept around kindness and being kind to others and actually spending that time with people. And Kerry, I think was we were just before we were shooting this, having a chat about the workshop you're running tomorrow, about the video of a monkey that has electrodes to its head, and the experiment was that when somebody came in and ate their lunch, it was actually registered in the brain as brain activity and actually changed the chemical reaction within the brain of that monkey. And the analogy that your PNC person who's running this thing with you is trying to get to is the fact that how we show up matters, how we enter the room matters, what we do is all the difference. And even though I'm having a bad day and I don't feel that good, coming into the room and actually being there for the others,
present,
yes, and being outwardly focused, not inwardly focused, is everything. And I think we there's not a workshop goes by where I speak to people and we talk about this concept of being nice to people doesn't cost anything, right? It's these little things that we do. Yet every employment survey that comes out, every focus group we run, always comes back to the fact that we're not being acknowledged for our work enough. We're not being given the praise, and we're not being anchored. So I guess for me, it's always been that this positive reinforcement or positive leadership that we call it these days, and the concept of praise and kindness, is that kindness is for some people it's just a way who they are. It's the way that they show up every day, and that's what they do. And for some people, it's that's not who they are, and they don't show up that way, and they have to learn that. And then there's this place in the middle that where it is intentionally done. And I've been able to help a couple of these sort of people who show up and says, I don't do that. Why praise people for doing their job?
All the time.
Right? How many times have we heard that?
I know.
Right?
Remind me to tell you a story about that from just the other day. That was the weirdest conversation.
Oh. So,
but they didn't experiment.
No. Yes. But it's there. The kindness is there. Is to anchor the behaviors that you're trying to get towards.
Yeah.
We don't anchor them. We always anchor them at the negative, saying, "Don't do that. That will get you fired. That's no good." But we don't say, "Do more of this. I like it when you do this. It makes me feel happy. You're a better person for this, and I have deep respect for you when you're doing this." And I guess if these two choices were given to me, which one would I respond better to? I would respond to the
praise.
I respect you. I have respect for you. I like you. What you're doing.
So therefore, I'm going to I'm going to keep doing those things that you give me praise for. Isn't it fascinating?
It's as simple
EQ
as that.
is as simple as that in that process.
It's not rocket science, as the scientists say. Tell us your story.
Oh, so I was doing I've been taking this person through a program, and we were doing her final coaching session the other day. She is a policy procedure, black and white leader. And so she's been managing, and so she's learning how to lead a little bit, this stuff isn't rocket science. So she did an experiment where she would acknowledge people for their work, say hello.
Good. That's a good start.
Get out of the office, say hello. She would acknowledge people for their day, but actually be quite specific in it. So what was the situation, what was the behaviour, what was the impact, but feeding the positive pieces around it. She even went to their Christmas party, which she's never done, to the team Christmas party, and got them up to dance. Just want to let you know. Anyway, the report back was, oh my goodness, the change in the team is extraordinary, where they're actually bubbling. I understand why they sit and have a chat for 5 minutes, because I know they actually get on to better work. I know that they're far more engaged. Their clients are actually getting a lot more benefit from it. It's a much nicer place to work. And she said all it was because I smiled at people and said hello. And I said, I think it was the weirdest conversation. And will you continue to do? Oh, yes.
I know. I mean, the thing is, from an EQ, emotional intelligence perspective, that awareness of others, it escapes a lot of people, not everyone, of course, a lot of people in terms of their effect on others.
Yeah.
They don't understand that.
If you're going to come to work, you might as well enjoy it. You might as well come and do a good job and actually enjoy working there.
And I guess the key point you're making here is that you need to run the experiment.
Yeah.
You're not going to by talking to them in the coaching sessions or in the workshop convince them otherwise. They actually have to go out there, run the experiment, and see it for themselves.
I like the word, Matthew, when you introduced it to me, the word experiment. I love that word. It's because it's not a project where I have to have an outcome. The experiment is I go and give something a go, and I reflect and learn from that process. Did it work? Throw it out. Yes or no? Throw it out. Try something new. So it's not I must succeed in this process. It's actually there's experiments there to learn from, not to and grow from, not to actually produce a task on that process, that thinking. I really love that word, experiment. So I thank you for that word.
Oh, my pleasure.
It's like an agile way of working, isn't it?
Yes.
Definitely an agile way.
And I love the other thing that, when Kerry and I run programs together, when we run programs together, and we spend that first half an hour, 45 minutes of that next day where we do reflections of their experiment. They share in their tables or in their groups around what did they put into practice and what have they learnt. And once they've learnt to trust each other, and that those experiments are extraordinary about what they've been doing and the sharing of it, And whether it be at that frontline piece or at that CEO level, those experiments are as rich at both levels, and the learning from each other then is just they're kind to each other.
Yeah, yes, really valuable.
Yeah.
So we spent a good part of a half an hour having a chat about rocket science, and
thank you for that.
And that leadership is not rocket science, and the question is what motivated us to make this video, and what is it that we wanted to hope to achieve out of this video? Who would like to have a first go at that?
Oh, let me have a go and then you can correct me. So I think one of the things that we've been doing as the three of us have been doing is that we actually come together once a quarter, and we catch up where we actually debrief what's been going on in our facilitator world. So we'll talk about the things that we really inspired us and really seen us fly through it, and some of the things that have caused us issues, or we've stumbled in. We've actually got support from each other around that process, and we don't get that as a profession. That there's not a lot of people outside that big wide world that we can trust, that we actually share that experience with. You can do it with an organisation that you recruit, that you're facilitating for. Usually those community practices are designed for giving me information about that organisation, not about improving my practice as a facilitator, leadership facilitator. So that's why I love us getting together, having the natters and the conversations and learning from each other.
And that's where we landed, because we said, okay, this is really valuable for us. What if we widened the circle? What if we invited other people to join, and as a community practice, and where we do share and have some knowledge from or some person that's an expert in a particular field or a topic, have 20 minutes or so on that, and then everyone else that's dialed in, has a natter about what's working and what hasn't worked for them. And I think that's invaluable for all those people that can would dial in, and especially for us as well,
because we'll grow and learn from it. So I think it's that community practice is really about providing a mentorship, so that we're learning from other people. We're fast tracking ourselves in the process. So.
And I guess for me, I had that community practice as a faculty member of the Australian Graduate School of Management until COVID. And so before that we had faculty rooms, we had offices, we actually were connecting with each other quite a bit. And then since COVID, they all have been converted into classrooms and into storage rooms, and now we don't actually have that community practice anymore, and we're actually not creating it off our own bat. We're actually too busy. We're too vested in trying to find the next job in order to spend that time, in order to run this to run this sort of community of practice.
Reflection.
Moment of reflection, and that and our learning, my learning.
Yeah.
Right. I give a lot of learning to others, but where do I find space from me
to reflect in that? Yeah.
And I need that connection to others in order to do that. So I'm going to close the video here. So thank you, Kerry, and Leslie for being part of that.
Thank you, Matt.
And the three of us to being the foundation members of this new community of practice, right? And I just wanted to close that if you are interested in this community practice, right? Please click on the link that is at the end of this video, and there'll be more information on the site for you to go and get that. So thank you very much. And the rain has stopped, but there's still no sunshine. So have a happy rest of the day.